Good morning. What is up? And welcome to Monday's Hangxiety. I have to say, I was knocking out the injury report for today's show sheet, and I was pleasantly surprised that nobody got killed yesterday. It seems like the NFL finally realized we needed a breath of fresh air. Nobody got hurt, but man, did some fantasy teams get hurt by just poor performances. And this is the show where we are going to vent. Let's get into it. What is up? Good morning. Welcome to Monday's Hangxiety. I am your fill-in host, Ryan Weisse. No Gator J this morning, but Josh Hudson's still with me. Josh, it's basically 10 weeks in the book. We got one game left to go, but the NFL, like I said, did us a favor on injuries, but not so much on some of the quality of the games this week.
There were some really exciting games this week, though. Like some games that really came down. I mean, and it all started on Thursday, right? I mean, even the Germany game, for as ugly as the second half was,
came down to the last play.
Had an exciting finish.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bucs 49ers game was a great finish. And I know that because my freaking restaurant was popping like crazy with all the damn Bucs fans in attendance. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot to like this week.
I don't know what award Baker Mayfield deserves, and he didn't play great yesterday. Let me be clear. But the fact that he has kept Tampa Bay competitive, like Cleveland just. I read another article about the Baker Mayfield saga yesterday and just how Cleveland screwed the pooch. And I was a Baker Mayfield apologist when he was with Cleveland. And when the rumors of Cleveland starting to go after Deshaun Watson started, I couldn't wrap my brain around it, Josh. And we've been doing shows together for 4 years now. You know, I don't like how quickly the NFL moves on from people. Like, it's a problem for me with most coaches, with most quarterbacks, but Cleveland just was a shell shock to me because I wasn't that bought into Deshaun Watson. I certainly wasn't bought into the rumors and stories around Deshaun. It could not have been more clear how big of a mistake this was. And man, do they have to be just fucking regretting that every day of the week at this point.
You know what, though? The way that Cleveland was set up, Baker needed to go. And honestly, it was less about Cleveland and more about Baker. Because Baker needed to get the hell out of there. It was the only way you were actually going to see the potential that came with him being the number one overall pick.
I also wonder, and it was such a short period of time, but I couldn't be convinced otherwise unless Baker says it himself. I wonder how serendipitous ending up in Los Angeles for that 5-week span was for him as a quarterback to go play with McVay, to play with Liam Cohen. And really, I'm wondering, that was probably the best coaching staff of his NFL career still to this point. So
1,000%. Yeah. I mean, and the whole thing with Stefanski, like, and we see this a lot really just with offenses in general and even defenses to a degree. Some player skill sets just don't match with what the system that the coaches are running, right? That's why good players end up getting traded or moved off of, because coaches are egotists. They think that their system is the end all be all, and they want to fit square pegs in round holes. And when those square pegs don't fit in those round holes, oh, you're not good enough for my system, because they think that their system is what rules, instead of, you know what? This is a really good player. I got to figure out how I can make this player fit in my offense. So that means I need to redesign some things to bring out the best in this player.
I'm just running through this in my head. This wasn't meant to be a Baker Mayfield intro, but this is what happens. The fact that the Panthers cut him mid-season, like, what? Oh, the NFL befuddling to me. Quick good morning, Caesar. Always good to see you. First comment every single day. Mr. Bakes-a-Lot, possibly new to the show. I don't remember the name. Is it a reference to Baker Mayfield? The entire intro of this show. I have a feeling it might be a reference.
Catching up.
Yeah, I have a feeling it might be a reference to something else. But good morning, Mr. Bakes-a-Lot. Welcome to Monday's Hangxiety. If you've never tuned in before, what we are going to do is recap some of the shit we saw yesterday. We're going to vent as fantasy managers, vent as NFL fans. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But before we get started, Josh wants to tell you about one of our partnerships.
Absolutely. Our sister site, Women of Fantasy Football, have this great partnership with Trophy Smack. So head over to trophysmack.com/WOFF. That's WOFF. and get yourself all of your achievement-based needs. Everything from championship belts, like I have here in my hand, customized because I am a champion of women of fantasy football. This is their rose gold plated championship belt. It's nice and pretty. You can get a different kind of band on it, however you want to do it. They also have championship trophies, rings, and wall smack. So you can decorate your office, your kids' rooms, hallways, whole 9 yards. Again, it's all customizable. Use that unique link, trophysmack.com/WOFF, WOFF. This is what helps us provide for the women that we send to our NFL media events, i.e. the Super Bowl, the Combine, the NFL Draft, all those things. We want to be able to help them out more than just giving them the access to the events themselves. Because look, these things aren't cheap, right? So you're going to buy this stuff for when you win your your fantasy leagues. You can buy this stuff for if you want to celebrate your, commissioner, which is the thankless job, or thank the losers in your league for sucking. They have all types of stuff there. trophysmack.com/WOFF. That's WOFF.
Boom. I want to give everyone a fair warning. And Josh, I didn't even get a chance to tell you this story. So for those who don't know, I live about 50 yards from train tracks, and it got everything shaking so bad yesterday, a train going by, that my clock fell. So there is a non-zero chance that at some point in the future on a club fantasy show, you are going to see this clock, which is about 14 inches big, crack me on the back of my fucking head, and it's going to be complete chaos.
We'll just pretend you're in LA and going through
It'll be the viral moment that club fantasy needs to take over the internet when I am bleeding from the head giving you my streams of the week. But we start this show where we always start the show, a recap of what we've seen so far in week 10. If you missed Thursday night, I will give you permission to leave this show right now. Go at least watch. Josh, one of my favorite things is NFL.com puts together a game highlight recap. They're usually 10 to 12 minutes long. The one for Thursday night is 17 and a half minutes long. That's how good of a game this was. Ravens win 35-34. It was a fantasy shootout. Most fantasy matchups that involved Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, or Jamar Chase were over after Thursday. There was no coming back.
Can I tell you that I actually am on pace to lose a matchup where I had Jamar Chase play?
You're also on pace to beat me in a matchup where I had Burrow because you had Jamar Chase. So, but Josh, I think it's a Jamar Chase matchup. I think I'm going to lose a Jamar Chase matchup as well. So here's hilarious. I'm the first place team in one of my dynasties playing the absolute last place team who is setting a lineup to fail, but left Jamar Chase in his lineup, and he's going to fucking beat me this week. So 8-1 losing to 1-8. What a Thursday. Then we had a London game. Panthers, second win in a row, 20-17 over the Giants. Don't call it a comeback. Bryce Young might be a real quarterback in the NFL. Probably not. Patriots handle the Bears. We're going to talk about the Bears later. 19-3. Buccaneers, as we mentioned, 49ers outlast the Buccaneers. Jake Moody, a rough game, but handles it with the last kick of the game, 23-20. Chiefs survive. You want to talk about the last kick of the game? Me and Joe Zolo will be fighting about this one on Wednesday. Chiefs 16, Broncos 14, Bills 30, Colts 20. Not a whole lot to talk about that one. Joe Flacco sucks. Steelers 28, Commanders 27. That was a super fun game. Russell Wilson, a little bit of a rough first half, played a little bit better in the second half. Vikings 12, Jaguars 7. Sam Darnold turns back into a pumpkin somehow. I mean, I did ask how this was going to go down in our Tuesday show last week. Were the Saints going to rally or were they going to get beat down? Well, it turns out they rallied. Special teams saves the game 20-17 over the Falcons. Chargers handle business against the Titans 27-17. Jets did not have an offense, could not score a touchdown in this game. 31-6. The Cardinals take that game. Eagles beat down the Cowboys 34-6, and the Lions outlast the Texans in what was a better than expected Sunday night football game, 26-23. We still have the Dolphins and Rams to go. Josh, we're going to talk about those games, so I'm not going to ask if you have any immediate takeaways. I don't think we've gotten any questions yet. This is the part with me hosting. So no, Josh, let's get to the rookie games. I know we've been kind of slowing down on this segment. I'm going to mention all the games, but there's one person we need to talk about, and I'll save him for last. So Marvin Harrison, kind of a bounce back week. And I told you guys last week, go buy him. They have a bye this upcoming week. I thought he was going to struggle against the Jets, 5 for 54 and a touchdown. He's the wide receiver 13 as of right now. Welcome to the NFL, Adonai Mitchell for the Colts. 6 catches on 6 targets, 71 yards. He's the wide receiver 20 right now. Bucky Irving with a bounce back game. He's been kind of playing poorly for the last couple of games. 87 total yards, caught 3 balls in that game, scored a rushing touchdown. He's the RB7. Tyrone Tracy saves his game in the second half, 104 total yards and a touchdown, RB13 for the week. And I know it's garbage time. But I'm interested in Trey Benson as well. 10 carries, 62 yards, 2 catches for 25 yards. Really efficient on the catching front. RB21. But Josh, we have got to discuss Mr. Takes one for the team, the NFL's version of 50 Cent, shot in the chest 2 months ago, playing in the NFL, 4 catches, 73 yards, first touchdown of the game, wide receiver 12 on the week. Welcome to the NFL, Ricky fucking Pearsall.
Yeah, Joe and I got into a few, I don't want to say arguments about this on Saturday Start Sit Show, but we were getting a lot of questions that involved Jauan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. We've obviously been talking about these two in particular all week long, going back to Tuesday's waiver wire show. With Christian McCaffrey coming back, obviously we know that Brandon Ayuk is out. It was a matter of what's the pecking order going to look like with this team. Obviously, we saw Christian McCaffrey not very efficient on the ground, only 3 yards per carry, but 6 catches. Very, very involved in the passing game. I thought we would get a bigger George Kittle game. He, of course, salvaged it with a touchdown catch. But the guys that Brock Purdy was looking at, it was Jauan Jennings, who I believe led the team with over a 32% target share, and Ricky Pearsall. And here's the funny part. Joe and I were arguing about who would score more points. I was on the Jauan Jennings side. Pearsall was on Joe's side. Pearsall ended up outscoring Jennings by only 1 point. But if you look at the involvement in the offense, that was all Jauan Jennings. He is the guy that Brock Purdy trusts. And with how they're utilizing Deebo Samuel, Jennings is kind of shifting into that Deebo role as Deebo becomes more of the focal point for defenses. But this is what I've always said with Deebo Samuel. He's a very talented playmaker. He's not the quality of wide receiver that Brandon Ayuk is.
No.
So he's being basically miscast in that role, whereas Jennings and now Pearsall can kind of be the wide receivers in this offense. So I think this is a great prelude for what we want to see from Ricky Pearsall going forward, at least for the rest of the season. I am very curious to see how it continues into 2025 and beyond, because obviously they re-signed Brandon Ayuk. They're going to have a lot of cap issues going forward because they extended Christian McCaffrey. But this is the kind of stuff you want to see. Not great target volume, but hey, you score a touchdown in any given week and you're putting up 73 fantasy points, you're going to be at least a wide receiver 2 most weeks.
Yeah. He looked good, and they drafted him to kind of play that slot role, and Jennings gives him the ability to do so. Deebo Samuel was all over the field. I see your question in the chat, Combat. Give us 2 seconds because it kind of plays into the next segment of the show. We call it the unnecessary shot of Rumplements. These are the key injuries for the week. And Josh, my goodness, when I got to the end of the list and saw there were only 4 names, I said, what universe is this? This is not how the NFL has been treating us lately. However, 3 of the 4 names kind of matter. Dalton Kincaid ended up leaving the game with a knee brace on. He had 2 catches. Looked like he was going to be heavily involved again. Unfortunately.
And then the overthrow. I was like, dude. Oh, that was rough.
Yeah, well, as someone who staked their DFS on Dalton Kincaid at tight end this week, I was also like,
I was thinking about when I saw that overthrow. I'm like, oh, there goes Ryan's pick.
Yep, there goes my $1 million. Anyway, Miles Sanders leaves the game with a foot and ankle injury. Nobody has Miles Sanders, but you know who you do have? Jonathan Brooks, who, guess what, was inactive again. Like somebody, he tried to tell everybody, but we'll get into that. He's going to play after their bye week, and now they might need him to play. Sanders leaves this game with a foot and ankle injury. Sam LaPorta scores a touchdown. That was unexpected to begin with. Looked like he might be involved. Sprains his shoulder, could miss week 11. For those that are chasing a playoff berth with Sam LaPorta, you might need a backup tight end now.
Wait,
and then
you were still relying on Sam LaPorta?
couldn't give him away. Could not give him away, Josh. And I it's a 14-team league. There weren't the streaming options. Yeah, there weren't the streaming options that I wanted. You don't even know, though. When I thought I was out, I traded Kelsey for LaPorta and a pick. My fucking regret is just all over the place right now. And then Tank Bigsby leaves the game with an ankle injury. And Josh, I want to bring this up because Combat's first question was he played Travis Etienne. He said that worked out pretty well. Now he wants to drop Bigsby for Audric Estime. Estime had, 14 carries this past week. Denver's running game is nothing to talk about and play ETN in the flex. I want to address the ETN thing, Josh, because I was going to try to fit him into a category for this show. He didn't look great this week, but I have been telling people, don't panic. He's going to get a rollback, and it's starting to look like certainly he only caught one ball this week, but he handled most of the carries with Bigsby going down. I think Travis Etienne is going to be a safe flex play for the rest of the season, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, he has to be, right? He's the guy that is ultimately going to be their receiving back. They don't use Tank Bigsby in that role. So even if Bigsby doesn't miss much time, Etienne is going to have that kind of value, and I would say probably better value than someone like Austin Eckler would have in a very similar role, right? But obviously, if Bigsby misses time, we get workhorse Travis Etienne. The problem is, if Mac Jones continues to be the starter, I don't think anybody on this offense is going to have much value, because 3 turnovers, there's a reason this guy is a backup. Awful. He looked awful. And again, I get it. It's Minnesota. Brian Flores dials up everything. He's one of the best, if not the best, defensive play callers in the NFL. Not a lot to love. Schedule is going to play into it. But I think when we're considering ETN as a flex, that's the right way to look at ETN.
Yeah.
It's not about, he's got the wide receiver 1 upside based on workload if Bigsby misses time, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to talk a lot about Audric Estime on tomorrow's waiver wire show. I'm almost certain about that, especially with how little or how much the involvement of Javonte Williams has dipped over the past 3 weeks. They're just not even using him at this point.
Which is incredible to me, and I understand they need to find what they have from Estime, but Williams is also a free agent next year. There's no reason not to run this guy into the ground, but if I'm Williams, I'm happy as fuck they're not using me, because this is a team that's not going to do
saving my legs for my next contract.
And saving my legs to get me paid one more time, because I think he will get paid one more time. And then Josh, I think this is an overreaction. Gannon Andrews asked, should he hold on to Devonta Smith? Yes, my guy.
Yeah, this is an overreaction. I mean, look, here's the unfortunate side effect of this Eagles offense. And anytime you're dealing with an offense with a quarterback who has the ability to run the football, it's going to adversely affect your skill position players, right? Basically, every healthy game this season, A.J. Brown has seen over a 30% target share, which is just mind-blowing, right? Over the last 4 games, I think it's 4 games, Jalen Hurts has averaged 2 rushing touchdowns a game. So right there, that's 8 touchdowns off the board. So if he's running them, clearly he's not throwing them, right? And even Joe, when we talked about this on Saturday Start Sit Show, we were both of the mindset that Philly was going to steamroll the Cowboys, which they ultimately ended up doing. Jalen Hurts accounted for 4 touchdowns. He was going to be one of my shots of espresso, but we've talked about him quite a bit over the last few weeks. And
it was kind of expected.
I mean, even Saquon Barkley had a very disappointing game this week.
They just
right?
didn't need him.
None of us expected that to happen. They just didn't need these guys to play. That's just the long and short of it. When you play an offense that's that bad, and they're that bad because they don't have their starting quarterback. I mean, shit. CeeDee Lamb had over a 30% target share and didn't even score 10 fantasy points. How does that even happen, right?
Yeah.
They did not need Devonta Smith. Do not overreact to this. Yes. Right now, he's just a boomer bust wide receiver 2. It's a sad, unfortunate side effect of the quality of this Eagles offense, but it's also in conjunction with how impressive their defense has looked over the last month of the season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I want to get Charlene up on the screen just because you happen to have just talked about this. Yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. and most of the Jaguars, I think, are all borderline unplayable right now. Correct, Josh? I mean, we can't trust Mac Jones. I think Travis Etienne is probably it. I mean, you kind of have to play Evan Ingram because the tight end position is absolute trash. But I don't think
Evan Ingram still had 10 fantasy points. Like
exactly.
It wasn't like he had a bad day by any means.
I don't think we can trust Mac Jones to make the throws to Brian Thomas Jr. that we were seeing Trevor Lawrence to do. So obviously hindsight 2020, Charlene, but this is the rough outcome of what's going on with that Jacksonville offense.
Well, and I think you also have to take into account with Brian Thomas Jr., he's playing with an injury. Like he's powering through this. Like this isn't like he's underperforming because he's fully healthy. there are other components that are factoring into this as well. That's why I've been kind of fading Brian Thomas Jr., not necessarily because of, the change of the quarterback position due to Trevor Lawrence's injury, which now they're saying could potentially be season ending, which if that's the case, then BTJ is matchup based for me at that point, which is unfortunate because he's had such a really good rookie season. But I think I think people are just forgetting about, what was it, like chest rib, something along those lines, that initially was going to be like a 2 to 4 week injury, and he's found ways to play.
Exactly. Josh, I brought this up. They said 4 to 6 at the very first moment, and then he never missed a week.
It's the whole thing, like with the back injury with Michael Pittman, right? They said that he could potentially miss 4 weeks going on IR. Then he played, then he was out. Like, it's a pain management thing. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing with Brian Thomas Jr. and the inconsistencies with team injury reports right now.
You said a lot there that I'm not extremely happy about. Clap Nuts goes right back at us with Devonta Smith. This is a different person, but asking more about Devonta Smith. Would you trade him in a full PPR league for Ricky Pearsall and Bucky Irving? Josh, you know how I am about running backs, but it's not like Bucky Irving's the end all be all there. This is a rough one for me.
In a vacuum, I think this is the Devonta Smith side all day, every day.
Yeah.
But again, this is what I will say. It's the ebbs and flows of this Eagles offense. And if I remember correctly, their strength of schedule isn't like they've got pretty cupcake matchups. And if that's the case, you're going to get a lot of Jalen Hurts. You're going to get a lot of Saquon Barkley and a lot of AJ Brown just kind of doing what AJ Brown does, right?
Yeah.
Which may play against Devonta Smith.
That's what I was going to say. If it's easy,
I think you can get more name value, but I think there's going to be a lot of, is this the beginning of what we're going to see from Ricky Pearsall, right? And I think that to me is the unknown and why I would still side with Devonta Smith. I like the idea of getting Bucky, and we're going to talk about that in our buy-sell section a little bit later. But yeah, in a vacuum, this is a Devonta Smith side. Practicality-wise, I don't hate this idea.
And who do you have to drop? That's always a big thing.
Well,
for me.
There's always that aspect. But also, what do the rest of my wide receivers look like? What do the rest of my running backs look like? If I'm making this trade, is Bucky Irving slotting into one of my starting spots? Because if I'm trading Devonta Smith, Ricky Pearsall is, right? And I don't know how comfortable I feel about starting Ricky Pearsall week in and week out.
Every week, it was a good matchup week for him. Just to answer your question, Josh, Washington next week, who has been stingy, though obviously we saw George Pickens get his in this week. But that was still only, Mike Williams scored as well.
But again, that's going to be AJ Brown next week. That's not going to be Devonta Smith.
Then you have the Rams, Baltimore, which could be the greatest game in NFL history, Carolina, which could be a blowout. It sounds like a great matchup, but if it's a blowout, it's not a great matchup. Pittsburgh, who's been kind of tough, though McLaurin got his. Again, that's an AJ Brown game. Washington again, and Dallas again. So it is kind of a weirdly interesting schedule for Devonta Smith.
That's what I'm saying. Like, on the surface, there's a lot of really good matchups there, but it's all about game flow at that point.
Yeah. I like running backs. I'm going to take the trade. I agree with Josh, though. There's a lot more about your team that we need to know. So
he does bring up, he's got Tank Dell, which I'm not a fan of. Tyreek Hill, inconsistent. Keenan Allen, inconsistent. Adam Thielen, honestly, dude, you can drop Adam Thielen.
You can't make this.
James Cook, I don't think you can make this trade because at this point, Bucky Irving's not starting for you.
Nope, you don't need Bucky Irving, and you need Devonta Smith. Yeah. No, I'm not making this trade at all. Good call. Charlene in her other league is praying for some Monday miracles. She has Stafford and Kupp in one league and some form of Tua, Waddle, and Tyreek in a couple of others. Charlene, the one thing I'll warn you, I had to go do it yesterday. Do you have a Tyreek backup? They are calling him a true game time decision. I have Odell Beckham sitting on my bench right now, Josh. The most interesting Tyreek backup, if you can get him, is Demarcus Robinson. I don't know if you have leagues where they're free agents right now. They haven't played. But look into Demarcus Robinson. Look into Odell Beckham if you have to. So
Jonnu Smith would be the one that I would target over OBJ.
There you go. As long as Charlene, please tell me you have Tyreek in your flex. If possible, that would make your life so much easier in a situation like this. I had to do that in one of my leagues. Cap for Life got clobbered this week. Cap,
I think we all have at least one team that got
I was just going to
this
say,
week.
I'm in so many leagues. I have so many, Cap. If you didn't hear my story early in the show, I have an 8-1 dynasty team that is steamrolling the division that is going to lose to Jamar Chase this week against the last place team in the division at 1-8. So just one of those weeks, my guy. Nothing I would fret about. Andrew Oprea, what a week. Stream the Buffalo D. Stream of the week. Boom. Baker didn't bake, but did enough. Picking up the Houston D for next week. I haven't looked ahead for next week yet, so my apologies there.
We'll get to that on tomorrow's show, Andrew.
Yeah, that's big for our tomorrow morning show. We do a waiver show from 11 to 12 on Tuesdays, so make sure you guys are here for that. Picking up Russell Wilson for Baker's bye. That's the part I'm going to take a look at there. Chilling 6-4, 5th place. Looks like you're doing really well. Josh, I had to choose. Russ is on waivers right now, but I have Caleb Williams, so he's perpetually on a bye week. I went out and got Gino.
Drop Caleb Williams now.
Yeah, well, it's a 14-team league. I mean, I probably can. You're absolutely right. But I will say, I went out and got Gino because he's on bye, which meant he was still a free agent while everybody else was on waivers with game time starting. So I was able to go get Gino, and he still leads the NFL in passing. I'm praying there, but it came down to Gino or Russ for me, Josh. And Russ is
Gino for me, just based on passing volume. What I love about Russ, and really like this goes all the way back to his Seattle days. He's being efficient.
Yeah.
And like 195 yards this week, 3 touchdown passes. Like the yards, not sexy, but that's what you get out of a Arthur Smith offense. He wants to run the football. This team is going to play good defense. They want to eat the clock. Russ is picking his spots. And that Mike Williams touchdown catch, like that was chef's kiss. Like that was an absolute.
Even the George Pickens catch, he threw that ball so high because we've been talking about
it where only his guys can get it.
And we've been talking about
that's what a quarterback should be doing.
George Pickens cannot fucking separate, but that man can contested catch with anybody. And you were
never.
Mike
Williams has always been one of the best.
That's true. 50-50 ball Mike Williams is his job. You just got to hope he doesn't break his hip when he's diving for these balls. Well, but what I was going to get here is, Josh, as much as we all love Justin Fields for fantasy, he's never going to make those throws. Russell Wilson understands more about the quarterback position than Justin Fields, plain and simple. So,
yep.
And then we end it with Charlene with the big brain move of the week.
This is how you play fantasy football, people.
Yep. Demarcus Robinson, in case Tyreek can't go, is the perfect backup plan. We call it the shot of espresso, folks. It's time to get into the quality performances that got the juices flowing. Josh, I don't think we could possibly do a week 10 show and not talk about what happened on Thursday night.
Honestly, I thought about it. I really did, because usually by this point, we've already like talked ad nauseum about Thursday night, right? Everybody knows what happened if there's a good performance. But this is basically the summation of week 10. It was Jamar Chase. It was the Bengals. It was the Ravens. It was that epic Thursday night, which again was the highest over-under on the slate, and they did not disappoint.
No, they did not.
Absolutely phenomenal performance by Jamar Chase. Saw 17 targets, 11 catches, 264 yards, not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdown receptions. I don't want to get too much more into it, but I found this very interesting nugget on JJ Zacharyason's data dump thread that he does every Monday morning. If you're not following him, Late Round QB on Twitter, absolutely fantastic. Of the top 6 regular season performances in PPR scoring since 2011, Jamar Chase has not 1, not 2, but 3 of them. The first came in his rookie year, 55.6 fantasy points. That was the second highest PPR point total since 2011. Thursday night, 55.4, which was the third highest. And then last year, he put up a 52.2 spot, which was the 6th most. Okay. This has been like, when I said that Jamar Chase was my wide receiver 1 heading into 2023, it was because he's capable of performances like this. Yeah. You can make the case, and I know that's probably a stupid to go against this, that Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL. But you cannot tell me that there is a wide receiver in the NFL better than Ja'Marr Chase when it comes to changing the outcome of games. He is the most explosive wide receiver in the NFL, and these fantasy points that he's putting up prove that.
Yeah.
Plain and
I was going to say, this might sound dumb to say, but I'm going to say it because I don't mind sounding dumb. Justin Jefferson, talent-wise, is certainly the best wide receiver in the NFL. No offense to Ja'Marr Chase. Justin Jefferson does everything perfectly. For fantasy, Ja'Marr Chase is the best wide receiver in fantasy. You have to.
Ja'Marr Chase came into the league, he has the most 60-plus receiving touchdowns.
Yeah.
It's him and Tyreek Hill, and nobody else has more than 4. Like,
Gannon,
that's how crazy it is.
Gannon, you don't even realize how much you're rubbing this in. I was thinking over this past weekend how I have no Ja'Marr Chase in any dynasty.
Oh, man. I have Ja'Marr Chase in 4, and one of them I have both Chase and Justin Jefferson. And for whatever reason, I still have not won that league. It baffles me.
I've not been able to pull off a trade. I never have any draft picks because of the way I play Dynasty. I guess I have to wait until Ja'Marr Chase is 30, and then someone's going to finally move him over to me because that's how I play Dynasty with all the old men. Josh, I'm going to stick at the wide receiver position and a guy that we've been waiting for a long time.
I'm so glad you put him on here. So glad. John
fucking Metchie, cancer survivor, if you're not aware. I mentioned after Stephon Diggs went down, Metchie had 4 targets, 4 catches, not a ton of yardage in that game, but it seemed like he could be a direct replacement to the Stephon Diggs role. Then week 9 came around and he let me down. I think he had 1 target, 1 catch, 0 catches. It was a bad week. I don't have it in front of me right now, but week 10, 6 targets, 5 catches, 83% catch rate, 74 yards, and scores a touchdown. You love to see it. I'm going to click his name right now. I'm almost positive, Josh, the first touchdown of John Metchie's career, and it is.
I think this is his best game period of his career.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, he fought through the cancer diagnosis. He was already coming off the knee injury. John Metchie has had a tumultuous NFL career, but Josh, if this is something that we can take into the future for his next team, because it's more than likely not going to be the Texans. However, Diggs is on a 1-year deal.
Only on a 1-year deal, yeah.
Diggs on a 1-year deal. If Metchie shows he can play this Diggs role with Nico Collins and Tank Dell playing on the outside, I am excited, and I'm just happy for the kid, plain and simple.
I mean, stop and think about this for a second. Like, a lot of us were kind of hyped for Nico Collins when he came into the league simply because of the opportunity, right? Like, He was a 3rd-round pick, so it wasn't the best draft capital, but it certainly wasn't the worst when you're considering wide receivers. Nico Collins didn't pop until year 3.
Yeah.
This is essentially Metchie's 2nd season. Next year becomes year 3. Just saying.
What's funny, Josh, is I was almost going to include him in the rookie section just as an ode to the NBA where they were letting people be rookies for 5 years in the NBA or whatever it was. But Metchie never got his fair crack, and I'm just so happy to see him on the field. And Josh, his time was cut short, but it was another nice week for Sam LaPorta.
Yeah, I mean, only 3 catches, 66 yards, but the day was salvaged by a touchdown. The biggest reason why I wanted to put Sam LaPorta in here, he finished as a tight end 4. This is his highest finish of the season, considering he was the tight end 1 that many people drafted. It's not a good look when week 10 gives you your best performance on the season. But this is 2 of the last 3 weeks where he has seen over a 20% target share, which he was at 20% exactly. My biggest fade on LaPorta this week was Jameson Williams is back from the suspension. When JMO was involved, Sam LaPorta is not. He did out-target Jameson Williams by 1 target this week.
That's missing most of the 3rd quarter and the whole 4th quarter, if I remember correctly.
Correct. Exactly. Look, sometimes you just got to celebrate the little things, and hopefully it's a trend going forward. But I found this, and I just wanted to throw this little nugget because I thought it was fucking hilarious. Jared Goff completed more passes to Houston than he did to Sam LaPorta. I can't believe this man threw 5 interceptions. What?
I'm just so bothered by that statistic. I just think it's funny, Josh. The people who we've generally regarded as bad quarterbacks, at least for the last few years, Jared Goff, Sam Darnold, Joe Flacco, all decided to turn into a pumpkin on the exact same week.
Same day. Well, I mean, it is fall and pumpkins. It's pumpkin
There you go.
season.
That's what it is. And most of those pumpkins are spoiled right now. Josh and I are sticking position for position here, and this was not rehearsed whatsoever. We fill these sheets out at different times. But man, Josh, it was nice to see TJ Hockenson back involved again. I thought it might be this week after he was sparingly used in week 9. Josh Oliver out-targeted him in week 9, and Josh Oliver still hella involved this week. 4 catches for 52 yards, but we're talking about Hockenson. 9 targets this week, 8 receptions, and 72 yards for a guy at his age coming back from a pretty devastating knee injury. This is the kind of game you wanted to see to make sure you feel comfortable pushing into the the fantasy playoffs with TJ Hockenson as your tight end, Josh.
Yeah, Hawk is very involved in this offense. He has been very involved in this offense. I think the biggest question was, how was Sam Darnold going to use him? Was he going to fit in, et cetera, et cetera? Obviously, you don't love Darnold's performance this week. I certainly didn't, because I started him over Justin Herbert in one of my leagues. And
I started him over Mahomes.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is the beginning of the end for Sam Darnold, but he's kind of put together a few bad games in a row, right? I'm not crazy when I say that.
Nope. Well, because the rhetoric started last week about how ecstatic JJ McCarthy has to be right now. And then, Josh, I may have misread the tea leaves. There's a chance JJ McCarthy could play this year, right? Or did they have to designate him for a return? Oh, okay, perfect. I for some reason I thought there was, just based on the injury, but I don't think they put him on the correct IR anyway.
It's the playoffs, and you're not going to throw a rookie starting first game in the NFL in the playoffs when your season's on the line.
I don't think the Vikings are making the playoffs.
I mean, they're
in contention. Don't get me wrong, but if Darnold keeps playing the way he is, they're going to be fast out of contention. Is the point I'm trying to make here. And then, Josh, you got one more for us, and I have to be honest. I caught the beginning of this game yesterday, and the announcers were talking Kyler Murray up so much. I'm like, what have I missed? I went back. Kyler Murray's been pretty damn good lately. So.
Yeah, I mean, 22 of 24, like hyper efficient day, 266, 1 passing touchdown. But of course, what makes this day so great, 21 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. This is the type of potential that when people were talking about Kyler Murray preseason heading into 2024, these were the types of regular performances that we wanted to see and knew that Kyler Murray was capable of. To me, the biggest thing was, first off, wow, the fucking Jets defense just absolutely just disappeared. I mean, we knew that this defense has really struggled without Robert Saleh. Not a good look for Jeff Ulbrich and his future as a potential defensive coordinator anywhere else, or a head coaching opportunities. But holy crap. No, I mean, this is what you wanted to see from Kyler. It was QB4 on the week, 28.7 fantasy points. He's played well, but we haven't had these like bursting off of the stat sheet kind of games, right? Like, he's still on pace to kind of do what I projected him to do, which isn't really a ton of passing touchdowns. I only had him at 22 heading into this season, and I think that's kind of what he's pacing for right about now through 10 weeks. But look, we get more quality performances like this, Cardinals are going to be in good shape, and their defense has played really well at home as well. So,
yeah, and that division's still kind of wide
open.
Very
up in the air, yeah, very up in the air. Every team has 4 losses except Seattle, and they only have 5. Like, everybody is grouped together very closely. So there's going to be a lot of jockeying for position when it comes to taking that division and getting into the playoffs.
Yeah. I don't need to spend a lot of time on my second picks. It's 2 guys that played each other in a game over in Germany. The number 1 rusher on the week and the number 4 rusher on the week come from the same game. Chuba Hubbard and Tyrone Tracy. These are guys I've been, ringing the drum for, beating the drum for the last few weeks. I've never been a huge Chuba Hubbard fan. I just don't see why the Panthers would turn away from him. It looks like Jonathan Brooks' role is going to come a little bit more naturally now with Miles Sanders hurt. Tyrone Tracy, Josh, I had feelings about this kid at the beginning of the season. I didn't think they were going to be this nice. 18 carries for this kid, 103 yards, 5.7 yards per carry. I'm off the top of my head. I think that's his 4th game as the starter, averaging more than 5 yards per carry. Surprisingly, still not involved in the passing game. 1 catch for 1 yard, which I believe is his 2nd time this season having 1 catch for 1 yard, which is weird for a converted wide receiver. Chuba Hubbard, 4 catches, lost a fumble in this game, or it could have been even higher output for him. But Josh, these kind of beleaguered running backs where people are kind of just waiting for them to lose their job, they just keep going out here and performing, and I'm happy to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody was saying that about Tyrone Tracy in terms of, losing the job.
Yeah.
Devin Singletary was that guy. But with Chuba, again, this is going to end up being a 50-50 split, especially if the Miles Sanders injury is as significant as it looked. But I mean, they just extended Chuba Hubbard. Like, they believe in him going forward. And it allows them to kind of ease Jonathan Brooks into this system, right? Like, they, by all accounts, he's looked really good in practice. He's been performing well. So I think, him being inactive for this game was more precautionary than anything, because if they didn't take him off of IR, they would have had to leave him on IR the rest of the season. Yep. So you're doing him a favor by giving him 1 more week with the Panthers on bye in week 11. Then he's primed and ready to go in week 12. Obviously 28 carries for Chuba Hubbard. Like, he's not a guy that's really built.
I was going to say, they don't want to do
that level of, carries. And we even talked about, like, there's a chance that with this type of volume that Chuba's had throughout, these first 10 weeks of the season, that's going to play a part in kind of, maybe a downturn in usage, which, again, that's what allows Jonathan Brooks to prop up and make an impact down the stretch for fantasy managers and really for the Carolina Panthers too, who they've won 2 straight.
Yeah.
They, struggled a little bit in the second half, but Bryce Young didn't make the mistakes that cost this team the way that Daniel Jones did, right? That, to me, is progress when you're trying to build up the confidence of Bryce Young in this Panthers offense.
I can't help but quote one of the greatest sports movies ever, Major League, for the Carolina Panthers. So we've won 2 in a row. If we win tomorrow, that's called a winning streak. It has happened before. So let's see if the Panthers can make it 3 in a row. And Jay gave us a little bonus pick. Jay, unable to be with us. My best to your family right now, Jay. Bijan Robinson, 20 carries, 116 yards, 2 tutties. But Josh, more surprisingly, almost as good as your quote from earlier this season, or this show with Sam LaPorta, it being his first top 6 week of the season, or top 3 week. This was Bijan Robinson's first RB1 week of the year. However,
overall RB1.
Overall RB1.
Correct.
However, 21 PPR points in each of his last 5 games. Bijan Robinson managers have to be ecstatic with their early draft investment right now, Josh.
Yeah, he has been balling of late, even when the usage has really kind of been like this when it comes to running back shares and trading off with Tyler Algier. Bijan Robinson has been heavily involved in the passing game, and this is a team that is not afraid to throw the football. And that is what we wanted to see from Bijan Robinson, because we all knew he was capable of it. Again, 5 straight. He scored over 100 fantasy points in the last 5 weeks. Like, that's really what this boils down to. He is the RB3 overall on the season in total points. Again, it hasn't felt that way.
No, that's
because of the rushing output. But he's doing it in the air. And that, again, when you're talking PPR scoring, that's what fantasy managers care about. Are you catching passes? You doing it over, scoring touchdowns? He scored 2 today, or on Sunday, excuse me.
Yep.
All about it.
I went in and looked just real quick because you were getting ready to say it, but I'm guessing you didn't look it up. He is the RB1 over the last 5 weeks and is beating Joe Mixon by 13 points, beating Derrick Henry by 18 points. And then those guys are the only ones above 100. He is beating the number 4 running back by 33 fantasy points in that span.
Nobody would have known that either.
Yeah, it's just not what you expect. He's been putting it down. Well, Josh, that was the good. Let's get into the bad. Folks, if you guys have any questions or you want us to talk about your Monday miracles, feel free to drop it into the chat. We'll always get to every single question or comment that we can, but we're going to continue with the show sheet right now. The migraine. It's worse than a hangover, Josh. These are the underwhelming performances that are likely a prelude of what's to come for the second half of the season. And It's hilarious, Josh. I wasn't sure who I wanted to talk about because there were two teams I wanted to talk about, and you picked one of them. So.
I love how we went team focused on this versus player focused, right?
Yeah.
The Chicago Bears offense is in shambles.
Yeah.
Absolute shambles. The top 3 target earners on this team, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, all even split 20% target share, which is kind of what we figured this offense was going to be, right? Caleb Williams threw 30 times. He was sacked 9 times by the fucking Patriots. This is a bad football team, and I'm not even talking about the Bears. The Patriots are a bad football team. But here's the fun thing. I'm fairly certain I heard this stat. Bill Belichick coached Patriots defense never had 9 sacks in a game. And Sherrod Mayo is able to do that in his 10th game coaching.
Sounds like there's a new GOAT.
If that doesn't tell you how bad this Chicago Bears, not only offensive line is, but Chicago Bears offense is, I don't know what to tell you. You basically said, Justin Fields, you're not it. And you know what? By all accounts, he wasn't it. There was a lot of things that he needed to do better. Caleb Williams is the prize prospect. He's the guy that, was the next highly anticipated quarterback, the Andrew Luck of this class, et cetera, et cetera. He has looked anything but. I don't know what it is with defensive head coaches that just cannot find a quality offensive coordinator that can put together a solid game plan, that can nurture and build up a quarterback and actually bring out their potential. But if Shane Waldron is the scapegoat, Matt Eberflus needs to be judged for his hiring prowess, because he brought in Luke Getsy, who couldn't even last half a season in Las Vegas this season. And now you got Shane Waldron, who basically was just let go by Seattle because of what he wasn't able to do over his last 3 years there. Yeah. I don't get this retread offensive coordinator stuff. If you're going to bomb on an offensive coordinator, bomb on one that you think has the potential to be great. Don't bomb on a retread.
Go snatch these kids from college like Ben Grubb. Like, we see it's working for Seattle. Or Ryan Grubb, my apologies, yeah.
Ben Grubb is an old offensive lineman.
I was going to say,
they can use that too.
You know what? Go grab Ben Grubb. I bet he can do a better fucking job.
69 net passing yards for the Chicago Bears this week. There is literally no explanation. If Shane Waldron is employed after week 12, everybody should go.
Well, and that's what
is gross mismanagement.
Yeah.
Yeah, just terrible.
How he's not fired today, and there's still a lot of time. Maybe we'll get some breaking news, but how he's not fired today is befuddling to me. Josh, I found this interesting. Caleb Williams obviously had the hype going into his bye week. 29.6 fantasy points back in week 6. Goes on week 7 bye.
Oh, and we all fell for it here. Idiots
like me went out and bought him. Thought he was going to be the end all be all. Josh, Caleb Williams output since week 8. 9.9 fantasy points, 9.2 fantasy points, 6.3 fantasy points. At this pace, he's going to score fewer than 5 fantasy points next week. Josh, in the last 3 weeks, the number 1 overall pick is the QB 29 in fantasy football. Fire everybody. And I'm in a similar situation, Josh. I got tricked. I wanted to talk about the Bears and the Jets. You took the Bears. I'll take the Jets. How do you not score a single fucking touchdown after throwing 3 amazing touchdowns the week before? The Cardinals, I went in and looked. They are allowing 2 touchdowns per game to quarterbacks and running backs. So they're allowing 2 offensive touchdowns per game. They're allowing 22 points per game, and you managed 2 field goals. Aaron Rodgers throws for 151 yards. Josh, when did blowouts stop becoming garbage time fantasy friendly affairs?
I was going to say, fantasy football, the golden
live
goose egg
Blake
is
Bortles,
garbage
baby.
time. What are we doing, man?
151 yards, Josh. Arizona had not allowed fewer than 199 in any game this season, and that was Jared Goff in one of his hyper-efficient games. 151 out of Rodgers. Fucking Caleb Williams in this terrible offense threw for 217 the week before in the same game script. He was 66 yards away from meeting what Caleb Williams did. And then I thought this was hilarious. In that same game, Josh, week 9 against Arizona, Roma Dunze had 107 yards. That is more receiving yards in week 9 than every New York Jets wide receiver added together for week 10. What are the Jets doing, and how many more times are we going to let Nathaniel Hackett just ruin fantasy football?
And it's not even Hackett, it's Todd Downing.
Yeah.
He's the play caller right now.
I forgot they switched play caller.
But he's even worse.
Yeah.
Like, this is a guy with the Raiders, with the Titans, was never a good play caller. Again, why are we recycling these retread offensive coordinators who don't know how to fucking call plays?
Yeah.
So many of these teams are living with these 10-year-old offenses that just do not fit in 2024. And I don't get it.
And they don't match what's going on in college football. You need to cater your offense more to the new way of playing football. You can't be like, okay, you were a fucking god for 4 years playing this spread, throw it around offense. Now we're going to come in and just slog you the fuck down. And that's not what's happening with the Jets.
Have to do, but then you have to teach a 40-year-old new tricks.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. They're catering to Aaron Rodgers, who doesn't want to learn something new.
And that's why I've advocated that we should just kill everybody above the age of 35 years old. Just get rid of them. Lucius.
Taking you out back and shooting you.
Yeah, I'm 42, folks. I'm advocating for killing myself at this point. But Lucius, is Jordan Mason a drop now, Josh? And so I mentioned I picked up Geno Smith. I dropped Isaac Orendo because he got 1 carry in this game. Jordan Mason was healthy. Then I went and looked. Jordan Mason also got 1 carry in this game. This is Christian McCaffrey's team. They are the ride or die. If I'm the McCaffrey manager, I'm not dropping Mason. If I'm not the McCaffrey manager, I'm not going to sit around and wait.
Yeah, I mean, this is handcuff season.
Yep.
Right? In real life and in fantasy. This is the only reason that you are legitimately holding on to Jordan Mason right now. It's to prepare for if this leg injury, calf, Achilles, whatever it is, resurfaces and McCaffrey doesn't finish the season. But the way this offense works, the RB1 is going to see 90% of the usage. It's just how Kyle Shanahan operates. When he has somebody that he trusts that can do everything from running the football to catching it and pass blocking, whole 9 yards. Again, we see it in this extension of the system with Sean McVay. That's why we haven't really talked much about Blake Corum this year. It's been all Kieran Williams as he's been healthy. When Christian McCaffrey was healthy last year, there was no room for a backup running back in fantasy.
Not at all.
That's it. But again, we're at this time of the year where injuries start to pile up, even more so than they already have, simply because the wear and tear starts to get to you. Christian McCaffrey's wear and tear hasn't really happened because this was his first game. But that existing injury still exists. He may feel great, but it may only be a matter of time before after 4 weeks, the fatigue starts to kick in, right? And it's like, oh shit, now I can't finish these games. I can't pull 90% of the usage. I just found it really interesting when I was scrolling through DraftKings yesterday and filling out my lineup. Isaac Rendo's price tag was $6,400.
Yeah. And was the same as
and McCaffrey was $8,000.
Yeah.
No, Mason was like $600 more.
Oh, okay.
He was at like 7,000 or something.
I must be thinking FanDuel then, because they were right next to each other where I was looking, because I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, it might have been FanDuel, but I was just like, this is wild to me. Absolutely wild. But yeah, and I think it was kind of weird too, because we were all hyping up Garendo on the waiver show last week.
Yeah.
And none of these guys have value.
Well, to be fair, I thought Mason was out. And that means
that's fair.
Garendo would have had double his usage this week and had 2 carries
instead
of 1. So I certainly would have felt a lot better about it. All right, guys.
Yeah, if you have Mason, honestly, what I'm doing is I'm just trying to trade him to the Christian McCaffrey manager and get something out of him.
Yeah, and that's actually a piece of advice I gave to someone yesterday about Kenny Gainwell. They asked about, is Gainwell droppable in Dynasty? I said, well, do you have Barkley? And he said, no. I said, try to trade him to the Barkley manager before you drop him. I was like, he needed the roster spot to get somebody. And so he's trying to work that trade. That's what, if you're tired of a backup running back, before you just give them up, try to trade them to the handcuff guy, because as Josh mentioned, second half of the season is handcuff season.
Especially because I know dynasty rosters tend to be a little deeper than your standard redraft ones.
Yeah.
Dynasty rosters, most of them are going to have like 30 some odd spots. So you have the room on your roster to be able to trade for those handcuffs to your star running backs.
There you go. And speaking of trades, we call it cream or sugar. These are the buy low trade candidates and the sell high trade candidates. Cream rises to the top, sugar falls to the bottom. Josh, who do you got as your buy this week?
My buy is Breece Hall. And it may not seem that way because over the last 3 weeks, he is the RB26. Not great, Bob. Not great. And more alarming than anything, his target share in this passing offense, which has been very good this season, has not exceeded 13% over these last 3 weeks.
Good Lord.
The 2 weeks prior to that, once Robert Saleh was fired and they transitioned to Todd Downing, was 18% and 23%.
Yeah.
So he's going like this. Kind of seems like the more that Devontae Adams has gotten involved in this passing attack, right? Because and Devontae Adams led this team in target share this week. I think he had 13 targets, and next closest had like 7 or something.
I thought Garrett Wilson had 9, but
maybe it was 9, but he still like blew everybody out. But this is what I like about Breece Hall. He has the third best remaining strength of schedule amongst running backs.
And this is the time of year where you have to pay attention to that.
You have to start planning for these things. And again, you can use these last 3 weeks, RB26. He's barely an RB1 overall on the season, right? Now, granted, trying to pry an RB1 is not the easiest thing to do. But the manager that has Breece Hall is probably a little frustrated. But from weeks 14 to 17, which are those key, end of season playoff matchups, he has 4+ matchups for running backs. Miami, Jacksonville, the Rams, who have nothing at linebacker, Buffalo, nothing at linebacker. These are all games where if the Jets have any semblance of an offense, if they just ride Breece Hall, he can win you championships.
Yeah. For me, I am looking at a much lesser running back, and that's going to be Trey Benson. Everything he's done in the last 2 weeks has been in garbage time. I'm very, very aware of this, but the narrative that James Conner does not play 16 games is still one that I'm going to ride with. Conner's looked good. They've been able to limit his usage, but I still think he's not going to finish the season, plain and simple. And they're getting Benson more involved. Week 11 bye. And that's one of the big reasons I like him, Josh. The same reason I liked Marvin Harrison last week is he should be really cheap. People are considering cutting him. So if you offer a trade that gives them an upgrade at fantasy defense this week, you can probably get Trey Benson for your fantasy defense. The last 2 games, 18 carries, 99 yards. That's more than 5 yards a carry. Scored a touchdown as well. 23 catches, Josh, that's not 23 catches. He has 3 catches. I fat fingered it. I was like, Jesus Christ, he scored 20. Regardless, 3 catches, which makes my point much better, for 43 yards. That's almost 15 yards a catch. The kid is hyper efficient. Backup running backs are supposed to be hyper efficient. I'm not going to be mad if they keep feeding James Conner, as long as he's working ahead of Amari DiMercado. And then, Josh, again, fantasy playoffs. Arizona gets New England, Carolina, and the Rams, all plus matchups for running backs for their last 3 games of the season. There are worse flyers to take right now than Trey Benson. If he's not rostered, he's going to be a heavy waiver consideration for me this week. If he is rostered, send out a dumb offer. You have no idea what people might accept because they probably think they have to cut him after this week. So
I agree. I like it.
And if we're buying those guys, we're selling, and we don't mean sell these guys straight up. Though, if you can get Josh's sell for his buy straight up, take that trade all fucking day. But Josh, who do you got as your sell this week?
My sell is Najee Harris. I know he's not the sexiest name. He's basically an RB2, and that's it. And he's a fringe RB2 at this point. He's RB24 on the season. But when I look at some of the names ahead of him, Najee still has name value. Yep. And some people aren't going to look at maybe somebody like a Bucky Irving, right? and be like, oh, this guy's in a timeshare. Najee Harris is getting all the carries, et cetera, et cetera. Najee Harris and the Steelers have the worst remaining strength of schedule for running backs. They're going to ride Najee Harris. You're going to get a ton of volume, but you're also going to get a lot of 20 for 53 yards.
Yeah.
Which is basically what he did this week.
I was gonna say, that's the most Najee stat line ever.
Yeah. Bucky Irving right now is RB23 on the season in a timeshare. You can probably sell Najee Harris to get Bucky Irving plus a depth piece at wide receiver. Yeah. And that is what's going to help you progress as the rest of your fantasy season goes on into the fantasy playoffs. Because we're seeing, and I'll continue on the Tampa train, we're seeing how bad Rachaad White is at running the football. 10 carries for 31 yards. Bucky Irving actually outrushed him.
Yep.
13 carries. And we know about the rushing yards and the touchdowns, etc. What Rachaad White continues to bring to the table: 6 catches, 31 yards, and a touchdown. It's all in the passing game. He's a glorified scat back at this point.
Love that kid as a third down back.
They do. But they're realizing right now that Bucky Irving is what's keeping this offense running, because
that could be the best thing for this Buccaneers offense.
Yeah.
If you just stop running Rachaad White, start giving the ball to Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker, and then use Rachaad White exclusively as a third down pass blocker and receiver, Josh, that could be great for the Buccaneers offense. So
it could be. And the concerning part, they didn't even let Sean Tucker touch the football this week.
Nope. That's like 2 weeks in a row. He had one or two.
This kid exploded. Just imagine if you were feeding all of those 10 carries to Sean Tucker instead of Rachaad White. How much better could your offense be?
You might beat the 49ers, you dumb fucks.
Yeah, right?
I guess the big worry is, like, if Rashaad's on the field, it's a passing down, but who gives a shit? Like, it's just the way it goes sometimes. All right, Josh, you guys might have to hear me out a little bit here, because you've been waiting, and I think you need to sell Nico Collins. Since week 7, this is not a Nico Collins problem. This is a Houston and CJ Stroud problem. Since week 7, CJ Stroud is the QB 24 in fantasy. And in those 4 games, Josh, CJ Stroud has 2 touchdown passes. 2. He has been sacked 18 times. That is the most in the NFL over the last 4 games. Over his last 5 games, he's only averaging 197 passing yards per game. And then during that span, Tank Dell has been the number 1 wide receiver. He has had 26 targets over those 4 games. That is wide receiver 28 output on over 6 targets per game. I'm not convinced, Josh, that Nico Collins is going to be able to come back and be the top 10 wide receiver that he left us as. But I think in trades, he might still have that value.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when you look at his fantasy points per game, it's number 1 amongst wide receivers. Actually, let me double check that.
The Chase
50-point output might have changed that.
I promise you, Josh, I do a small show for my home fantasy league, and I made that exact same comment, and the Jamar Chase fan was like, "Are you sure about that?"
Yeah, Jamar Chase is officially at 22.5. Nico is at 21.3. So technically, Nico is the wide receiver 2 in fantasy points per game. So yeah, there's still that level of value there, because again, he's a top 5 wide receiver, top 3 really in fantasy points per game. So people are going to be like, oh, well, all these struggles that CJ Stroud has had, he didn't have those when Nico was playing. When Nico comes back, all is right in the world of Houston Texans and my fantasy team. Yeah, I'm with you on this. Tank Dell being wide receiver 28 in those same games, I kind of expect that, because I've never. Yeah. The Tank Dell explosion from last year was very misleading. It was really just a product of the chemistry with CJ Stroud and defenses not really knowing what they had with these rookies. Now defenses have tape. 165-pound wide receiver ain't gonna do shit. Sorry.
And that's what we talked about last year, Josh, how they were misusing him. They were using him the same way they were using Nico Collins last year, and he is not built like that.
Yeah, not at all. This passing attack is very different, but you know what? Things change when you get a workhorse like Joe Mixon. That's really what it boils down to.
Yeah. Oscar,
he had 1.6 yards per carry against Detroit, and they still fed him the ball 20 times.
Exactly. They're not going to stop giving it to Oscar. We're going to get your question here in 1 second. We got one segment left on the show sheet. I'm going to knock this out. We'll finish with any questions that are there. We'll talk to you about the Monday night game and get you guys out of here. The segment why we started this show, it's called Chill the Fuck Out. This is the really good or really bad game that is just about the schedule. It has nothing to do with this player moving forward. Josh, I think yours is pretty obvious.
I mean, you really, yeah.
But people are going to freak out. People are going to freak out because he's the only one on the team right now. So,
well, and I get that. But let's have a reminding conversation of Marquez Valdes-Scantling. We have seen this level of production before. 3 catches over 100 yards. 2 of them go for touchdowns. Okay. He had only 3 targets in this game. He ran only 18 routes in this game. That was 2/3 of Derek Carr's dropbacks. He was not the guy on the field the whole entire time. He was the guy that defenses just weren't paying attention to because he's not that good.
Yep.
This is what happens. We've seen this with Josh Allen. We've seen it with Aaron Rodgers. We've seen it with Patrick Mahomes. This is Marquez Valdes-Scantling's game. He will go 3 for 100, 2 touchdowns, and then he will disappear for 4 weeks. Now that he's had this game on the Saints offense, who they have been decimated at wide receiver, he's going to get more run. Defenses are like, all right, well, I guess maybe we should actually like cover this guy. And
now we know who the one
next week.
Yeah, now we know who the one is. They know who to cover.
But that's the thing. He's not even the one. Mason Tipton was the one running all those damn routes.
Yep.
He's just an undrafted rookie that can't handle being a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, the one thing I'll point out for Marquez Valdes-Scantling is couldn't hack it in Green Bay when they needed wide receivers. They moved on from him. Kansas City desperately needed wide receivers. They moved on from him. Buffalo desperately needed wide receivers. They moved on for him, which is why he's now with New Orleans. Don't expect him to all of a sudden be a great wide receiver on his 2nd team this season, 3rd team in the last 2 seasons. And for me, Josh, I went back to our roots of the bad game that you shouldn't panic about, and that's going to be Baker Mayfield. We talked about him to start the show. I'm going to come back to him to end the show. He gets Mike Evans back after the Week 11 bye, so he is on bye next week. He gets Mike Evans back. But then, Josh, we've been talking about it. For the remainder of his season, he has actually one of the easiest. It's the 5th easiest, maybe 4th easiest schedule for quarterbacks. The New York Giants, the Panthers ×2, Las Vegas. His only bad matchup is the Los Angeles Chargers, and then the Dallas Cowboys. I think Baker could end up cooking for the rest of this season where you get Mike Evans back. That's going to finally have to force the defenses to play honestly. You're going to be able to keep the running backs involved in the passing game. You're going to be able to see good KDOT, and it's going to be a much better Baker Mayfield come Week 12, assuming Mike Evans is healthy and not dealing with old man injuries. So.
Well, and this is what I find hilarious about this. We're talking about Baker struggling. He's still the QB2 on the season. Like, it's not even like he's playing bad. Like, sure, you don't love 9 interceptions in 10 games, but like 24 passing touchdowns, the passing yards has still been afloat. This team has not been afraid to throw the football. Stands Chris Godwin going down and Mike Evans being hurt. Like, this is the fearless Baker that made him the number 1 overall pick, and he's producing. So, yeah, 100%. Do not worry about Baker Mayfield at all.
Yeah. Like I said, it was an ugly week against a good San Francisco defense. George is going to drop some questions for us while we're waiting on George. Oscar says, do we prefer Tank Bigsby or Blake Corum, Jalen Wright for the rest of the season? He had a trade value.
Still on the Bigsby.
What's that?
I said, I'm still hanging on to Bigsby. I don't know why we're so worried about this.
Well, yeah. So it looks like he's worried about the value with Trevor out for the rest of the season. He's also dealing with that injury, which could be mildly concerning. Bigsby got hurt in this game. But the problem is, Josh, neither of those 2 guys matter. I was going to look for our props tonight. Raheem Mostert is still getting like 10 carries a game. Jalen Wright is next year's problem. He is not this year's problem. These are not the guys I'm targeting if I am looking to move on from Tank Bigsby.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, with Bigsby, I want somebody that's going to be a little bit more involved. I'm just going to throw out a name. It's not somebody that I would drop him for, but Alexander Madison, the way that he's being used, like that's the kind of, if I'm dropping Tank Bigsby, I want somebody that has that level of production and involvement in the offense. Right now, Blake Corum and Jalen Wright are nothing. They're simply handcuffs, like we've been talking about throughout the show. It's handcuff season. You want to prepare for these, but you're not going to drop Bigsby to go pick up a handcuff because you can still start Tank Bigsby. You're not putting Blake Corum or Jalen Wright in a lineup unless it's a productive struggle dynasty team.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. Corum has a chance to pull a Trey Benson, but as you mentioned, Josh, that's not how the Rams run their offense. They're not going to spread this ball around. If Kyron's healthy, it's his ball, plain and simple. Right. Josh, how do we feel about calling Amon-Ra St. Brown touchdown or bust? I feel like he's had more good weeks than bad weeks.
I've literally been saying this for a month and a half.
I was going to say, Josh, this is starting to feel like the Jalen Waddle argument from last year where I would keep defending the Sun God and you keep saying no. But I mean, 6 for 60 is not terrible.
No, it's not terrible. But the point that I have been getting at with Amon-Ra St. Brown for the last month and a half, the way that this offense is structured, they want to run the football, right? Jared Goff is going to be efficient while passing, just not against Houston.
Yeah.
But and when they needed Amon-Ra St. Brown, he came in and he delivered, right? Like 100%. they went at him down the stretch and they utilized him. That was classic Amon-Ra St. Brown. Wide receiver 9 on the week.
Yep.
He does not offer that top 3, top 5 level upside.
The top 5
drafted him at.
The top 5 is too good, plain and simple.
That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. He is a wide receiver 1, but it's not going to be the consistent level of top 3, top 5 production
that's fair.
Drafted him to be. And that's the point that I've been getting at. Worst first round pick I've ever made, George. That's a bit of a stretch, buddy. Because he's outproducing CMC right now. If you drafted CMC, that's the worst first round pick.
Are you not more upset if you took Tyreek in the first right now?
Also that. CeeDee Lamb has also been pretty disappointing.
Yeah, we're not making fun, George. We're saying it's just as bad for other people out there. You just feeling it right now. But I also just noticed, Josh, in my Amon-Ra argument while I'm looking into stats, he has scored a touchdown in every game since week 3. Good Lord. That's the kind of touchdown.
I mean, he's scoring touchdowns, which, again, that's keeping him in that low-end wide receiver 1 conversation. But, again, it's the target volume. I think he only has 1 or 2 games above 10 targets this season.
Yeah.
It's not very many.
Yeah, I think that was back in week 2. I still have it up right now.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, like Josh, you're so right. Yeah. 18 targets in week 2, not above 8 in any other game. So, yeah, that's the
concerning part. That's why I say.
George says with Nico Collins and Kenneth Walker both back next season, he is choosing between the flex spot of Devontae Adams, Chase Brown, Tyrone, Tracy. Does he trade or hold any? Well,
if you listen to Ryan, trade Nico.
Trade Nico. At the very least, trade Adams. You aren't prying running backs at this time of year from my cold, dead hands, Josh. Like, it's not happening. So,
yeah, 100%. I mean, you could definitely try to, if you took Nico and say Tracy, maybe just based on the lack of, hang on, and go get a Saquon.
I was just going to say, I like what you're about to say.
That's Nico and a Tracy for Saquon. You pair Saquon and Walker. You have Chase Brown as your flex guy. You could do something along those lines where you're still playing Adams, because if you're considering him between a flex, that tells me you've got 2 really good wide receivers ahead of him.
Yeah.
So now you're balancing out your team. Like, these are the types of trades that you make this time of year, because you're going to go all in, right? You're going to say, I'm going to make my best lineup, and I'm going to basically eliminate any and all confusing starts to decisions.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. The one thing I'll throw out there, tread lightly, still a ton of buys left on week 12 and week 14. Don't go out and buy those guys. Look for the guys like Saquon Barkley, who've already had their buy. That's what you're looking for in this situation. Are we all hopping on the Estimate train? Give us 24 hours on that. We do a show from 11 to 12 tomorrow. I have a feeling Estimate is going to be a big part of the waiver wire show. I don't know that we're hopping on any Denver Broncos train outside of Cortland Sutton. And our next question, are we playing Bo Nix after his good game against Kansas City over Jordan Love next week? I'm not going to doubt Jordan Love coming off of a bye. I'm probably going to still start Jordan Love, but I definitely see the argument, Josh, for Bo Nix.
Well, Jordan Love plays the Bears, and right now I'm starting anybody against the Bears.
Yeah.
Bo Nix is at home against the Falcons.
Great matchups for both.
Yeah, I mean, it's good matchups. I mean, I think the Falcons defense is pretty feisty.
Yeah.
But again, it's a home game. So there's definitely opportunity. Again, what you love with Bo Nix is the rushing upside, which of course he did it through the air this week against a really good KC defense. It's tricky. I think I would still lean Love personally.
Yeah.
Especially coming off a bye week. Look, we know Green Bay Packers quarterbacks, they own the Chicago Bears. So
yep.
I think I'd stick with
it's officially a trend at this point. George let you know he started the Philly defense, and your takes were fucking on point last week. You hear that, folks? Follow us, like, subscribe, do all those things. Victor Blanco got offered Josh Jacobs and Kyle Pitts for his James Cook. He has K9 and Dobbins. Mike Gesicki is his tight end. I'm taking that trade all day. You're getting a comparable running back and a tight end that you can play over Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Jacobs and James Cook are basically the same running back at this point, and then you're getting basically a free tight end. Yeah, I would do that.
Yep. George mentioned that he got in late, so he's getting all his questions in right now. This is how we're ending the show. Yep, absolutely. So for trades, does he try to move Adams and Njoku together for a wide receiver and stream tight end, or try to go get somebody like Kittle? I like that move. Adams and Njoku might be a mild overpay for Kittle. See what else you can get back in that trade. But I don't hate that trade at all, Josh.
I mean,
I think Njoku's probably a top tight end for the rest of the season.
I was going to say, like, I don't think it's that big of a difference between Njoku and Kittle, truthfully.
Yeah.
For rest of season anyway. So, I'm not going to make that move. I'm fine if you want to trade Adams and Njoku for an upgraded wide receiver and stream tight end. Like, you follow Ryan. He's pretty good at picking tight ends to stream. So,
yeah, doing okay with it this season.
If you can upgrade at wide receiver with Adams and Njoku, absolutely, I would do that.
George also points out that he's defending his Amon-Ra worst pick because there's nothing inherently wrong with him. Just hold on. I don't understand. Oh, I see what he's saying. Everybody else is hurt. There's nothing wrong with Amon-Ra. He's just not getting the job done. There is something wrong with Amon-Ra. It's called Jared Goff. Victor Blanco, week 11, pick 2 flexes. James Cook, unless we recommend the trade, which we do. J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Hopkins, Cortland Sutton, Jawan Jennings. I can't sit Cortland Sutton right now, Josh. The guy is the entire offense.
I was going to say, like, and I wasn't in love with this matchup. KC's played really well. I think really it boils down to Cortland Sutton. You just have to deal with the bottom weeks. And I'll apologize for Ryan as well as myself, because pretty sure about a month ago we were saying to drop Cortland Sutton.
Yeah. Hey,
I'm not going to lie, though. The moment that Vele caught that touchdown, I'm like, this is why I said bench Cortland Sutton. And, of course, Cortland Sutton comes back and scores a touchdown.
Well,
I'm like, well, fuck me.
Also, other than, oh, my God, I'm blanking on our guy right now with Bo Nix. None of us believed in Bo Nix. So.
Well, this is true. Victor, what I will say, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We do a start-sit show every single Saturday morning. These start-sit questions are much better on Saturdays versus Monday.
Oscar says, looking at the use of CMC in this game, someone offered him CMC for Jamar Chase. Chase still has the bye. No, you're not trading Jamar Chase in no world. I love
Jamar
CMC.
Chase right now is the single greatest fantasy football asset of the 2024 season. CMC is not that. Sorry.
He is saying, I don't have this in front of me right now, that Chase has only been good against the Ravens this season, but I feel like he's had other pop games. I don't have the numbers in front of me right away.
I can pull them up right now.
I will say I saw a crazy stat that Jamar Chase has more points against the Ravens this year than Tyreek, Mike Evans, Nico Collins. A lot of these guys have missed games, but all of your best wide receivers, Jamar Chase has done more against the Ravens than they've done this season.
Yeah, against the Ravens, he has 96.7 fantasy points. But here's the kicker. Since week 3, 29.8, 17.5. We know about the 41.3, 12.2, 17.6, 20.4, 11.3. And of course, last week, 55.4. He is the model of consistency. It's not like, he's only living off of these 40, 50-point games. Yeah. He's got 17 here, 12 there. Like, he's scoring double digits every single week. Your wide receiver 1 overall in the season, that's what happens. They're going to have these spike weeks. You live off of the consistency. And when you're scoring 10, 11, 12 on more than that on a consistent basis, week in and week out, those spike weeks are what elevate you and help win you those weeks.
Putting it bluntly, Jamar Chase is worth more than Christian McCaffrey right now. I'm not saying don't make this trade. You got to get something more back. Like you got one good game out of McCaffrey, who's dealing with Achilles tendonitis and 2 separate fucking ankles. Like, don't fuck around. George says it's his last question. He's asking about his Monday miracle, Josh. He's up 21. He has Stafford. His opponent has Tyreek and Kupp. Does he pull off the win? I think that's a pretty easy victory for him there.
Yeah, we'll get to our underdog picks for Monday night, but I'm very down on Tyreek with the late week wrist injury. I think he's safe here.
George and I had a funny interaction on Twitter. He called me out on Tyrone Tracy in the DMs and said, "What's going on with Tyrone Tracy this week?" And then Tyrone Tracy bust that 60-yard run on like the next carry. And he's like, "Never mind. I'm sorry. I said in Tracy we trust." So, Millie, I was just talking about you and could not pull your name to save my life. I said, me and Josh were telling people to cut Cortland Sutton when you were the only one who believed in Bo Nix. So I'm glad you jumped in when you did. That was the most serendipitous shit ever. I guarantee you jumped in as I was trying to remember your name. I think that was fate right there. So I'm glad you're there. And then Millie asks about his Monday miracle. He's down 20 with Kupp left to play. We just told somebody they were down 21 and we're going to be able to survive Kupp.
Yeah, but they also have Stafford, right?
Exactly.
Like, so that'll kind of balance out some of that being up 21. I think Kupp can very easily get 20 fantasy points. Like, I don't think
I think so as well.
I don't think that's so rough. But again, like if Puka's actually playing the entire game, maybe not. We'll see. But this is kind of what his weeks have been, right? It's been like, 10, 11 catches, 100 yards, 90 yards, whatever it may be. I think 20 is there in a PPR. So,
yeah, I think so too. 10 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown. Infamous Dak. What do we think? He gets Kelsey, J. Jeff, DeAndre Swift, and Roschon Johnson. So he gets the Bears starting running back no matter what. He's giving up CMC, Jordan Mason, George Pickens, and Mark Andrews. He's 3-6. You have to make a change, and this is the kind of change to make. I would make this trade. You're getting the better tight end, Justin Jefferson, and a running back that can put up CMC numbers unless CMC goes nuclear. I'll make this trade, Josh.
Yeah, I trust Jefferson a lot more than I do CMC right now. Pickens has definitely looked a lot better with Russ at quarterback. I think it's a pretty fair swap, truthfully, all told. Yeah. And I think these are the types of moves that sometimes you just need to make to kind of jostle the lineup and, see what can happen.
Well, sitting at 3-6, are you going to win this week? I assume you are. So let's assume you're going to be 4-6 after this week because you're definitely going to need to make some moves to finish up the playoffs. Steven wants to know what he can expect, Josh, if he gives up Darnell Mooney and Tyrone Tracy in a trade. And I think, he wants to know what level of wide receiver he should go after. Mooney over the last 3 weeks, Josh, is the wide receiver 4. I don't know if I'm in a big move to make this trade because I'm looking at the names. I guess maybe go after Justin Jefferson after his down game. Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't feel like the right move, even though I've been talking him up. Josh, I don't think I'm making a trade out of this. I don't think there's a guy who I'm looking at right now where I'm like, you need to go get that guy because he's down. You know what? Marvin Harrison Jr. He was my buy last week, but I still feel like
but you're not more packaging somebody. Then.
That's what I'm saying. No, honestly, Steven, I don't think you make this trade, plain and simple.
Yeah, I don't think you do because in theory, most of the people that you want to target, your Jamar Chases, your Justin Jeffersons, your Garrett Wilsons, those are just bigger names than Darnell Mooney, and Tracy's not a big enough name. And that to me, that's the biggest thing with fantasy football managers, right? Name value still holds so much more weight than actual production.
Yep.
So Darnell Mooney is a guy that kind of fell off the name value map after, just dwindling away in Chicago in those bad years with Fields and, coming in and being a part of this high-powered offense. Like, my first thought when I saw this trade, I'm like, oh, you know what? Go get Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers has been somebody that has been popping with Baltimore. Sure, he's going to have some spike games here and there, but he leads the team in target share. The production's there. Darnell Mooney's outproduced him this year.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's not the trade to make. Do you really want CeeDee Lamb right now with the whatever is at quarterback right now in Dallas? Nope. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Amon-Ra, not that big of an upgrade in my opinion.
Yeah,
Nobody's going to give up Justin Jefferson to get Darnell Mooney. Nobody's giving up Jamar Chase. I think you kind of have to stand pat there.
Yep. Let's jump into the Underdog. We'll finish with a quick round of questions. Just a reminder, folks, we do have a partnership with Underdog. If you use promo code WOFF, you get a free pick plus a first-time deposit match of up to $1,000 using promo code WOFF. The Monday night game, Josh, is the Miami Dolphins at the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are a favorite by just 1 point, which is pretty strange in my opinion. The over-under in this game is 50.5. How do you see the game going, and who is your underdog pick?
I think the Rams pull this out. I don't know what's going on with Miami's offense, but it's just really not a good look at all. I think Devon Achane is going to have a great game. That's about the only thing I'm certain of from the Miami side of things. So, and
then your prop plays into that story. So
exactly. Tyreek Hill lower than 72.5 receiving yards. This, of course, could get washed out if he's a surprise inactive due to the wrist injury that popped up. But when we're talking Tyreek Hill, of course, we think explosive games and big yards and catches, all these things. He has only hit this mark twice this season. And I know a lot of this has been without Tua, but he hit it in week 1. And then last week he hit 80 yards. And then I believe it was week 8, he was at exactly 72. So he still would have missed this line. But again, when you're dealing with this wrist injury, that was a late week pop-up. He's going to have to fight through this. You're catching your ball with your hands that directly impacts your wrist.
Yeah.
This could re-aggravate, have him miss time, and ultimately end up him playing the role of a decoy, where we see more Devon Achane, who's really become the wide receiver 2 in this offense. We see more Jonnu Smith, who right now Tua is targeting the running backs and tight ends more than the wide receivers. Maybe Jalen Waddle actually gets involved. Who the fuck knows? But I don't see Tyreek Hill hitting this prop as a result of the injury in the situation right now.
And Josh leads perfectly into mine. I'm going to say Devon Achane, 5.5 receptions. We're going to take the higher on that. In 4 games with Tua Tagovailoa, I talked about this on last week's episode, 28 catches in those 4 games. And the Rams have given up 7 catches in a game already this season to DeAndre Swift, with Tyreek Hill hurt, Jalen Waddle not playing well. I think this could be another big game for Devon Achane. I think 6 catches. It's a high number for running backs, but it's not high compared to what he's been doing. Gator unable to make the show, but Gator is also the only one whose advice you should actually take on these picks. Josh and I are both below 500. Gator is 10-4 on his Monday night picks.
2 each week. That's why he's got better. So
exactly. Kyron Williams, over 85 rushing yards. He didn't have much explanation in here, but you don't need much explanation. Miami does not have a very good offense. Did I just combine Miami and Dolphins and offense? But regardless, Kyron Williams over, Devon Achane receiving receptions over, Tyreek Hill receiving yards under are our underdog picks for this week. And Josh, we end with a few more questions. George wants to confirm his only receivers, this is from earlier in the show, ARSB, Adams, and Nico. Are we still willing to package one of those wide receivers and Tyrone Tracy to go get a real running back? And I am. And this is the point of the year where I'll slim down my roster to get superstars, Josh.
Yeah, I have zero issue with that because you can find pop week wide receivers on waivers.
Yep.
Go get Jalen Coker. Go get Jalen Coker. He's leading the team in target share over the last 2 weeks over Xavier Legette.
Yeah. No, yeah. Like I said, go get elite guys. That's what you want to do in this. Millie Mills says he has Love and Darnold at QB. He got offered Joe Burrow for Najee and Coleman. Should he do it? This can't be super flex.
I would be looking at that fantasy manager and saying, fuck off. There's no way I'm making this trade.
You don't want Burrow?
I've got Love and Darnold. Burrow is good. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not trading. I'm not trading, cogs in my team for an upgraded quarterback. Like I'm trading a quarterback and another piece to upgrade. Sure. But and I'm all about trading Najee. I'm all about trading Keon Coleman. Right. But now you've got 3 quarterbacks. You're not trading Darnold or Love for any pieces. So now what are you doing? You're dropping them for waiver wire people.
That's a good point.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm not making that trade.
Yep. And then Steven ends the show with, he mentioned earlier, Mooney and Tracy for a wide receiver. What about Moore and Tracy? And now it gets more interesting to me, Josh. If I can turn Moore and Tracy, again, wide receivers have been so hit or miss, Josh. I'm looking at this now, and I still don't know that I love it, but I might do it for try J. Jeff. I think I would probably do it for Amon-Ra. I know you wouldn't do that trade, but I don't know, Josh. It's hard. I'm not feeling these trades for some reason this morning. Drake London
can't even get a bag of nacho cheese Doritos for DJ Moore right now.
Yeah. So, I mean,
he's been bad straight up. And it sucks because Cleveland's strength of schedule remaining for wide receivers is fucking elite.
Yeah.
And nobody wants him because he can't fucking produce because his offense is in shambles.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can get someone like Zay Flowers for this, by all means, do it. But I just, because really what people would be looking at in a trade like this, I get Tyrone Tracy. That's what they're looking at. They're not saying, oh man, I get DJ Moore. It's, I got to take back DJ Moore. Like, that's what people are looking at. You know?
I got to pay that salary.
Exactly. That's what they're looking at.
All right, guys, that's going to be the end of the show. Club Fantasy goes live 7 days a week. We have shows 6 days a week, or excuse me, we go live 5 days a week. We have shows 6 days a week. We'll be back on air tomorrow morning, same exact time, 11 o'clock in the morning with Wiretapped. It's going to be the same crew you see here tonight, me and Josh. We're going to be talking about all the waiver wire pickups. We'll be talking about who we think you can drop. We obviously answer every single questions. We follow that up with Trade Blocked. That is our Dynasty Trade show every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Flagship show is Wednesday at 8 p.m. We also have Cleat Dreams with Renee and Kelly. I do have to switch some times up here. Wednesday, the flagship show, no pun intended, is going to move to 9 p.m. and Cleat Dreams is actually going to take our 8 p.m. time slot. So you're going to see a program change. We will be 9 o'clock for the flagship show on Wednesdays moving forward. We have DFS shows Thursdays and Fridays. So Captain My Captain on Thursday morning, and then the main slate show on Friday morning. But Thursday, we have a ton of shows. We have the Sneaky Flex with Ronan Maisie, hosted by Wendy. They just had a fucking professional football player on their show this week. They absolutely crushed it. It's 21 minutes of the best football you can watch. Make sure you're checking that one out. Dynasty After Party. And then, as Josh mentioned earlier in the show, every Saturday, all we do is answer start-sit questions for an hour at 11 o'clock. So if you guys need help, that's going to be the best show. That's going to have the most up-to-date information, and there's no show sheet. We're not trying to get our own agenda out there. We're just there to answer your questions. And, of course, this show is going to be back next Monday. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for the subscription, Mr. Bakes-A-Lot. I thought you were a new name. Love having you riding with us the entire 90 minutes. You're a fucking legend. Thank you, guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 24 hours. Have a good one.